So last night I went to install this and I had a bit of a scare. I put everything together. I had it mounted upstairs in the range hood, and when I went to power it up, all of my LEDs just started to flicker on and off. My buzzer was flickering on or off, and I didn't really know what was going on. I unplugged everything and immediately probed the board for shorts between power and ground on all the different rails, and I couldn't find any shorts. And as I looked around, I finally realized that what I had done was taking this 40-pin header and I plugged it in one pin off. And I believe when you plug in one pin off center, this is the I2C pins right here, 1 and 2, and I believe it was shorting 3 out to the I2C pins, and so nothing would work. I unplugged it, I came downstairs, my screen stayed blank, however it was still able to power up, and I was still able to get some data out of it. So here's my Node-RED flow, so we can see what's going on there. And the interesting thing was, this is my graph, and you can see that I was getting analog data over the I2C bus, and then it stopped when I fried this. But my temperature data was actually still reporting, so I was working on it, and I started to get temperature data to come in. And here's this morning from 7 a.m. to whatever. So my temperature was working, but my I2C wasn't. So I knew that some things were okay, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong. So what I finally did was I pulled the SD card and I put it into a known good Raspberry Pi. This is a different one I've got. And I took an extra circuit board and just threw my stacking header on here and put that together. And I started probing the I2C bus. And when you probe the I2C bus, it should look like this. Periodically, you'll see data come through. And no data came through. And I worked on it for a while, and finally I disabled the screen and I booted to the HDMI, and I found that it was disabled. So somehow the OS or the BIOS, whatever Raspberry Pi has, Linux, disabled I2C on me and SPI, and I've re-enabled them, and things are still working. All of my sensors still work, with the exception of just the video data on the screen. So the touchscreen input interrupt works, these interrupts work, but I have no video. So I'm gonna pick up a new screen, and I think I'm gonna be okay. So the other thing I did when I was trying to track down the problem was I would run I2C detect, and then if I ran I2C detect 1, which is the main I2C bus, I was actually getting this message. Of course, I2C-1, no such file or directory. That was because it was turned off somehow in raspiconfig. So when I tried to see what was on the bus, nothing would show up. So in doing that, I ended up tracking down that it was turned off somehow. So now I can run I2C detect, and I can see all my devices. That's my thermal camera, which I have implemented the new grid eye with the greater temperature range. That's my analog to digital, and of course 4D. I think we can guess what 4D is. Of course, here's my user interface now. So I've got the regular camera, and there's my hand on the mouse, and my thermal camera. And of course, because it's weird, the backlight control actually still works. So if I slide that down, or I slide it up, so I can still control the backlight on this screen by moving my slider, but nothing actually gets displayed.